Okay. I see you now. When I open live chat, not top chat.
Okay, let's start. I click start streaming.
Okay. Wait for your introduction.
Hello everyone, this is FIDE Master Viktor Neustroyev. Today we were planning to originally conduct the webinar about positional pattern recognition with FIDE Master Armin Musovic. Unfortunately, yesterday he was tested positive on COVID and now he cannot conduct the webinar. That's why we invited our coach, international master Boroljub Zlatanovic, who is going to conduct a workshop on the topic devoted to the key squares in a chess game. So, Boroljub, you are ready to, you can introduce yourself.
Hello, dear chess friends. Welcome to our workshop. I hope you will enjoy and learn something. First, I want to introduce myself. Well, my name is, as you already know, Boroljub Zlatanovic from Serbia, international master. I will host today that workshop, and I am just a professional coach for more than 2 decades, and in the last 5 years also author of books and many video courses. What I want to say once again is welcome to the Chess Lens platform. You are just welcome, and I want to invite you, if you already did not, well, I want to invite you to book 1 page, to book 1 hour of lesson, and you can get 1 extra hour for free. Okay, that is sale valid for next hour of 2. I do not know, but I think that's so. And of course, I want also to invite you to book your trial 20-minute session where one of our eminent coach will just help you to improve by watching your weak points and by presenting his method. So later you can organize sessions on your own. Okay, now let's start. Here I want to say something about importance of key squares in chess. What are key squares? Well, generally, you probably heard about key squares, and you probably know that key squares can be holes or, let's say, squares in front of opponent's backward pawn. Yes, you know, when you see the hole, or when you see the opponent backward pawn, just install piece and probably knight in front of that backward pawn. Let's start with our first example. First example is game played between famous player Aaron Nimzovich, who led white pieces, and his opponent Hans Dung. Game started in this manner, c4, and after e6, no, there is no any Catalan or any queen gambit because Aaron Nimzovich decided to play e4. Okay, after e4 is played, black played c5. Knight c3, knight c6. I will not spend so much time on that opening, and I want just to go on to each position with very important key squares on the board. f4. Okay, that's one of favorite Aaron Nimzovich opening setups as with white pieces, of course. d6, knight f3, and here after black played g6, we get first important moment in the game. What is the reason that moment is so important? Well, the reason that moment is so important, I would never advise to black to play such move g6 when pawns are already on d6 and d6. Why is that mistake? Simply, you probably know about Scheveningen Sicilian setup where black has pawns on d6 and d6. I think that's right. You probably are familiar with that. And I also am pretty sure that you're familiar with setup where black has pawns on d6 and g6. Okay, that is characteristic for dragon variation in Sicilian defense. And you know that black sets pawns on d6 and g6. But what happens if black sets pawns both on d6, e6, and g6? Well, you know, if black has pawns on d6 and d6, that just means he will place bishop on e7. On the other hand, if black has pawns on d6 and g6, that means he will put bishop on g7 with dominating on that longest dark square diagonal. So accordingly to that, playing d6, e6, and g6, all that 3 pawns cannot be good, because now black bishop must make some decision. You know, if black sets bishop on e7, who knows? Then g6 is waste of time, and square h6 can be potentially weak, right? And if black sets bishop on g7, that means pawn on d6 will be vulnerable and without any protection from the bishop. So simply that means that one of that moves, e6 or g6, is not needed and is actually waste of time. So maybe I can give you now 10 seconds to get decision and to find the continuation for white. Of course, now I will say white should go for d4. Why d4? Well, idea is to open d file and to get access to d6 pawn. After getting access to d6 pawn, white will practically force black to set bishop on e7, and that means there will be problems with hole on h6, for instance. Okay, I think c takes d4 here will be a lesser evil, but black continued with bishop g7. And what happened? Of course, d takes. Such tricks with queen c5, queen a5 will not work because white can just take, and there is nothing black can achieve after taking, because white has bishop d2 and domination, strategically winning position with bishop pair and extra pawn. Let's go back to the game. D takes c5, taking, of course, taking the queen, and now, of course, e5. And now I want to make some diversion. I want you to observe deeper that setup, that pawn setup, with white pawns on c4 and e5 against black pawns on c5 and e6 with open d file. Of course, mostly endgame will be clearly in white favor because of, let's say, some gained space. If you do not know to find some examples, here I suggest you to follow the game Hort, Grandmaster Hort, play with white pieces against Winterson. You can find using just Google or ChessBase, of course, and some not so common game, for instance, but I'm absolutely loved in that endgame, played between two players, two women from Soviet Union, Tikhomirova against Morozova. That is the game. You will find easily that game as I did on just using the browser. You can just find many examples, but what I want to say, white invested some tempo in advancing e4, e5, and if white covers with success that important squares, I want to now mark them. Of course, not g4, let's say g5 maybe. White will just get clear domination. Actually, the point here is with pawns on e6 and g6, black has definitely and desperately weak d6 and f6 squares, and white can use b5, e4, and g5 squares just to invade. What to suggest to black? Okay, let's see. Black played h5. Of course, white plays bishop e3, finishing development. It is always good to hit two birds with one bullet. So always try to go for multi-purpose move. Why is bishop e3 multi-purpose move? Well, white finishes development, preparing castling, and of course attacks same time pawn on c5. After b6, castling, queen e7, and now we must ask ourselves, why did black play h5? Definitely, idea is to install knight on f5. Okay, black wants to control some key squares himself, but is that f5 square so important? As you will see, answer is not. And what to do as white? There are many good moves. If you suggest knight e4, okay, you will suggest a good move. If you say knight b5, you will say good move again. If you play bishop d3, even that is good, of course. But far the best move here is bishop f2. So that is beauty of chess. That is very important thing and reason chess is out of any dogmatism. Simply, what I want to say is that relativism is also valid in chess. What is the reason to play once again with piece which is already activated? Well, if I play something like, let's say this, after knight comes to f5, that will be prevented. There will be prevented maneuver bishop e2 and bishop h4. So if you have 2 or 3 or 4 possibilities, do something opponent can prevent. And white just plays bishop f2 with idea to place bishop on h4 before opponent sets his knight on f5. Let's go on. Knight h6, check, king goes back, and bishop d3. Now, practically all roads lead to Rome. Everything wins because white is just brutally dominating on key squares. There are plenty of possibilities he can go for. As you can see, knight can jump here and there, finally accessing d6. White can do rook d6 with doubling eventually. But white decided first to play bishop d3, bishop b7, and bishop e4. Idea after bishop e4 is, of course, to eliminate light square bishops if black knight c6 jumps somewhere, of course, and to get even access to 7th rank. I think more or less everything here is absolutely clear. Knight a5. Okay, what should be our move? Bishop b7, taking, and of course invading rook d7. Black played rook b8, and you can see tragicomic situation, tragicomic position of black pieces. Just see, rooks are out of play, are immobilized, king out of play, bishop works nothing, knight can jump to f5, but what for? What is the reason? What is the job for black knight after it gets f5? There is nothing black can achieve with that knight. White can just continue smoothly with rook hd1, and you know, from my career, from my practice, I can give my observation that I mostly enjoy such positions. Simply, you cannot do bad move. Just don't blunder anything and you will win the game. Whatever you do will be good. Knight b5, knight e4, bishop f6, rook hd1, knight g5. Simply whatever you do will lead to the win. But okay, rook hd1 is somehow the most logical. White threatens rook b7 with deflecting rook and eliminating knight, which is defender of square d8. So black must eliminate that threat, of course, and he did it with king g8. Okay, king gets access to h7 and can be that check can be eliminated with bishop f8. So that's why white played bishop e7, renewing the threat of rook b7. Knight f5, okay, making spot for the king on h6. So now, as you can see, white wants to show brutal domination of his position with this, but there is nothing more than perpetual. That is just demonstration of power, of course, not win. So don't complicate, just win the game straightforwardly. And what is the straightforward win? Knight g5, renewing threat of rook takes b7. What can black do? Rook e8, counter-attacking white bishop, and now, of course, everything wins. For instance, that, you know, where game will be absolutely winning for white after, let's say, this and collecting material. But white decided to play for a mate. He simply felt that black king cannot escape, and he was right. So if you want to learn properly to organize invasion on king squares, Aaron Nimzowitsch is always good mentor for that, let's say like this. Bishop f6, ef, knight a5. What you do? Yes, you can take on a7 if you said that, but why not to play for a mate? Rook d8. The only move black can do is king f8. Of course, rook f8 is not possible because white will just take, and after black takes, white will just do rook d8 with a mate, of course. Rook king f8, and now I suggest you to pause the video and to find a win for white. Maybe 5 or 10 seconds. I will give you that time to find win for white. Of course, white just decided to play rook 1 to d7. Of course, threat is simple. Rook takes f7, and if black eliminates with rook d8, white will take with a mate. What can black do? Well, the unique defense is knight h6, and now once again I suggest you to pause to find the win for white, of course, and you can find some beautiful continuation and beautiful combination white has. White can do right now. So white joins another piece to attack, and black joins another piece to defense, and of course white must get decision. That is primitive move which will give the win. Of course, there is nothing strange, but there is so beautiful win, and white found that rook f7. After rook f7, black is practically forced to take, but now white takes, rook is pinned, black must do king g8, and after king g8 is played, rook e8, king there, everything is forced, knight g5, and black resign. If black goes there, there will be mate in 2 with this, or with rook h8, of course, and if black takes, white will take, and after that there will be again mate. So eventually you could see that white managed to exploit all that weaknesses black had in its structure. Let's see once again that game, this time briefly, before I switch to next example. So what I want to say is, first mistake is g6, allowing white to go for exploiting holes on f6 and h6, but white needed to play d4 to target pawn d6 to get sure black bishop will be practically over and standard. Let me see. What about rook e8? I will come back with that answer. Okay. Bishop g7, d takes c5. Actually, c takes d is lesser evil. D takes c5, d takes c5, queen d8, and after that, white just played e5. Not only getting access to that 2 squares, but also paralyzing the bishop, closing it. Also, don't forget white takes f5, s6 square, where black knight can jump. Of course, game continued h5. Idea is to answer rook e8 with rook a7 and rook a8 idea. Okay, everything wins in that position, but I will show that when I get to this moment. h5, bishop e3, multi-purpose move, finishing development, eliminating piece which stands between rook and the king, and attacking c5 with a tempo. After b6, castling king e7, black is ready to transfer knight to f5, and before black manages to do that, white plays bishop f2 and bishop h4. Okay, all squares are now covered of the white control. Just see that monster bishop on diagonal, bishop d3, bishop b7, and bishop e4. White simply finishes development, activating all his troops, and black is practically hopeless. After that, white just invades on the 7th rank, rook b8, rook hd1. After e5, white played, I think black is strategically lost, so I will not try to find such some better defense for black because there is nothing better, and the results will be actually same. Black position is full of weak squares. King g8, avoiding the mate, bishop e7, and knight g5, targeting h7 again. White plans once again, rook takes b7. After rook e8, bishop f6, Nemtsovich decided to keep that bishop on the board, bishop f6, ef, and knight a5. Rook d8, going for a mate, king f8, rook goes to d7, and knight c6. And now knight h6. And now question is, what if this? Okay, nothing strange. After that, black just loses. But I'm pretty sure that is answer to chat question. But I'm pretty sure Aaron Nemtsovich in that moment already saw beautiful winning combination, which actually forces the mate. So yeah, I want to say you are right, but everything wins. Knight b5 with knight d6, check, targeting the rook, of course. Knight e4 to get d6, using some other route, and black is absolutely hopeless. Just take a look on his scattered pieces. One may say, okay, can black castle? No, black already moved the king. Black already moved the king many times, and there is no right to castle. What is the game? And well, knight e4, found by Nemtsovich with knight f7, rook takes f7, and everything is forced. After knight e6 took the pawn, black just decided to resign. And I really hope you could enjoy that video, and I really hope you could learn something from that remarkable game. Simply, black allowed so many bad moves in early stage of the game, and simply white just was able to exploit all of this. It is time to switch to game number 2. I prepared for today, but before I switch to game number 2, I once again want to invite you. Book your 20 minutes trial lesson. For 20 minutes, you will talk with professional coach. You can pick any coach from our list. So you're welcome to Chesslands. In 20 minutes trial session, when talking with coach, that coach will be able just to find your weaknesses. You can present your games. You can talk, maybe play with coach, and coach will present his methods and his ideas for your improving. So for sure, you will enjoy working with us, and you will learn a lot rapidly improving. Of course, don't forget, book your 1 hour lesson, and you will get one extra hour for free. Don't forget, that is valid for any coach, and that sale is valid for next hour, let's say, or during that webinar. My dear chess friends, it is time to switch to game number 2. Now I will open another game. There is the game Efim Geller played with white pieces against Mario Bertok. Mario Bertok is not so famous player, but very solid international master from former Yugoslavia. Efim Geller, what to say about him? It is very well known that Efim Geller was fearless player, famous attacker, and player who definitely enriched Sicilian with many ideas, especially for white players. Let's start with the game. Let's see what happened in the game. e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, c takes, and knight takes d4. Okay, all that is very well known. After knight f6 was played, white played, of course, knight c3, and black here has many choices. Knight c6 going to Rouser defense, e6 choosing Scheveningen, g6 going to Dragon, or a6 as happened in that game, choosing rooting for neither variation. And Geller here played bishop e2, very common move, very peaceful move, but still move containing a lot of poison. e5. Still black can go for Scheveningen with e6 or maybe some dragon with g6, but okay, e5. And we here get system of famous Isaac Boloslavsky, so strong player in 40s and 50s of last century. e5 is the most important patent, and of course knight b3 here is the main line, where after knight b3 black plays bishop to e7. So here we get typical pawn structure for Boloslavsky variation in Sicilian defense. And what is the most important characteristic of that pawn setup? Well, of course, you can see that d5 is square white wants to use to install his pieces. Why? Simply, pawn on d6 is backwards, and sooner or later white should organize direct frontal attack on d file on that pawn. But who knows, maybe that pawn will be moved to d5. So in order to attack the weakness, that is universal principle made by Aaron Imcevich, before you frontally attacking any weakness, it is good to make it immobilized and to fix it. So first, white wants to install piece on d5, then to regroup if possible, and then to strike using d5. But it is not easy to install knight on d5 because black can take with his knight. What I want to say, in any moment, for instance, forget about on e4 hanging. What I want to say, if white takes with queen, that queen will give black some tempi, bishop e5, bishop e6, d5, and black will get rid. On other hand, if white takes with pawn, okay, possible, but holes should not be filled with the pawns. You should install not pawn in a hole, but piece. And that is very important. That is key. Yes, of course, white can try to organize c4 and c5, which is typical for many Sicilian lines, and not only Sicilian, also, let's say, King's Indian. But of course, now this 6 pawn is very safe, and black can launch his majority maybe with attack on the king side. So what I want to say is, yes, you should install knight on d5, but after black captures, to capture with some other piece, if possible, minor piece would be best option. Let's continue with the game. Castling, and bishop e3, queen c7. Yeah, when I show that game to my students, I usually inform them, all of them, that it is, and now I will say that also to you, of course, when you find key square, this time this is d5, it is very important, it is essential, it is key thing in that position to overprotect, to over control that square. More pieces, the better. So white wants to, if possible, to set bishop to c4, queen somewhere, and both rooks to d file. That would be perfect. What with bishop c1? Well, bishop c1 cannot directly affect on square d5. d5 is light and bishop is dark squared, but that bishop can be exchanged for that knight. So if you find your piece cannot affect, cannot control some key square, try to use that piece to eliminate some defender of key square. The point is bishop g5 here would not be as good because black has knight d7. So if white takes, no worries for black. There is other defender, other knight will control d5. And of course, white loses very important piece. That bishop would be used maybe to attack that weak pawn on d6. So such exchange, such drastic solution will not be so good for white. Okay, castling happened, bishop e3, and queen c7. b5 here looks normal, but that would be premature because after a4, b4, knight d5, now black position looks, let's say, terrible. Of course, now black is not able to take there because what to do with that rook? There is no way to close diagonal. There is no rook a7 move. And if knight e4, I think there is huge initiative for white with, let's say, maybe bishop b6 or simply knight b6, yeah. And after rook a7, knight c8, and finally that bishop will take that rook. So black must take care about this. b6 is weakening move, and white would be able to exploit it. So b5 not possible, and that's why black played queen c7. Queen c7, okay. Well, question is, what if black captures knight e4 after knight d5? Well, in first moment, I just wanted to show in that moment knight d5 just as a point, not exactly in that moment. Of course, yeah, that can be played, but after this, there is a problem for white. I just wanted to mention knight d5 as a possibility where it is good for white to recapture back with a piece and not with the pawn. And in that moment, after black played b5, of course, bishop e3 and b5, now knight d5 will work after a4, b4, where after this, as I told you, knight b6 and material will be gained for white. Let's go back. Queen c7 instead of b5. So bishop e3, queen c7, and queen d2. Both sides finish development. Finally, white played a4 to prevent b5, b6, and rook f d1. Step by step, you can see white pieces are getting more and more control over square d5. Key square is d5. Key squares should be over-controlled. More pieces control key square, that's the better, of course, and white just brings even major pieces on d5 to target d5 square. Bishop b7, black fights for that square, pawn e3 is under attack, and now bishop f3 would be, let's say, solid. Bishop will use x-ray to control d5, but still it will be passive, and that's why white played f3. In next stage of the game, white will try with bishop c4 in some good moment to organize bishop c4 to install bishop on good spot d5. f3 was played. Okay, rook fd8 and bishop f1. Calm move. Maybe white wants to regroup, allowing something like queen f2. And after bishop f1, black played knight c5. Suggestion for you, dear chess friends, try to evaluate that move. I will give you some time. Try to evaluate it and try to get any conclusion after that. Is that good move or bad? And what should be white's reaction? Now I will say that looks as active Sicilian queenside move, but actually that is big mistake. Why? I will explain a bit later. Here I want to say that bishop c6 should be played, and now we get interesting position. That position happened a bit later, I think, in next year, 1 year later, in game Efim Geller played with white pieces against famous Bobby Fischer. Fischer led black pieces, but still no problem for white, no problem for Efim Geller. He managed to implement a revolutionary plan for that period, starting with knight c1. He didn't play knight c1. I do not remember exactly about the game, but knight c1 immediately was maybe the best option. Why knight c1? Idea is to use famous route found by Efim Geller to install knight via a4 to b4 to d5 eventually. In his game against Julio Bolbochan, black reacted a5 in some moment, but okay, then white was able to install piece on b5 and white won that game in style. If you want to see Another game characteristic for key squares. In that game, black had two weak squares, both d5 and b5. Game Geller Bolbochan. Find that. You can find it in Megabase or anywhere you want. So after knight c1, a5 was played in that game, and white managed to win the game. After knight c1, not played immediately, let's say Geller outplayed Fischer, but Fischer somehow managed in time trouble, in mutual time trouble, to survive. So that would be still better option for black than played knight c5. And now I will say the reason knight c5 is bad move. Looks like black threatens to play d5. Rook d8 is opened right now, and looks like black is about to get rid of that backward pawn and to just activate all his pieces. Once again, I want to make some small digression and to remind you about Aaron Imswich words. Blockade never has local character. If you block some pawn, you will practically block all pieces placed behind that pawn. That's why black wants to play d5, because both rook and queen and bishop will get new prospects. When you install piece on d5, the best is knight, of course. Black would be completely paralyzed. Okay, what happens after knight c5? Looks like black will get rid of weakness this or that way, and white decided to capture. Why to capture? First, let's say b takes c5 is terrible mistake, because after bishop c4, game is strategically over. There is backward pawn. White can even in deep endgame play c3, b4, b5, creating passed pawn, or to manage to organize that pressure on the file. Logical reaction for black is taking with d pawn. I think everyone will agree. And now, where to retreat? There are three squares, three dark squares and one light square. Queen c1 is not normal. Don't put queen between your rooks. Queen e1 or e2 or queen f2. If queen e2, that makes sense, targeting c4, but you need bishop on c4, not queen. So in this moment, we want to put our bishop on c4. That's correct. To block pawn c5, which will block both black bishop and queen, and to get access to d5. Don't forget, there is no backward pawn on d6, but still d5 is key square. And all squares giving you control to these squares are key squares as well. That's why key 4 is another key square. But for instance, if you play queen e1, oh, there is c4. How to install bishop on c4? Looks like impossible. Black will get rid of your dominating bishop on e3 with bishop c5, maybe later preparing b5, having a relatively solid game. And of course, Geller earlier predicted he has just very good possibility of queen f2. There is no way c4 doesn't work. Bishop b6 and game is over. So after queen f2, black decided to get rid of major pieces. There is nothing better we can suggest to him, because bishop e4 will come. Queen e1 to g3, yes, but I think queen f2 to g3 is better, because queen e1 does not prevent c4 and queen f2 prevents c4. So queen f2 is more precise than queen e1. Yeah, that's clear. After queen f2, rook d1 was played, rook d1, rook d8, and of course white didn't want to have knight distracted from c3. Okay, no. Don't deflect your pieces. Don't allow deflection of your pieces from key squares. All your pieces controlling key squares should stay there to maintain permanent control over key squares. Rook d8, bishop d8, and of course bishop c4. You must do that. If you don't do that, he will play c4, because bishop and queen both protect pawn b6 right now. Bishop c4. And now everything is clear. White has stable and this time big advantage. Maybe that is not so obvious, but domination on light square is most important positional factor here. Okay. What can we add to that? Very soon, all white pieces will control d5. Even bishop e3 will have its role, maybe. What to do? Black played bishop e7, trying to organize something. Queen e2. Yes, queen d2 is good if you suggest this, occupying the file, but white wanted to do queen e2 with tempo. Definitely, queen belongs to d3. Why to d3? Together with bishop, there is battery attacking pawn a6. Black cannot play b5, that is prevented. Pawn will fall for nothing. Black cannot play a5, that will give you another hole on b5. So black pieces are practically stuck, and black queen and bishop will not work at all. There is also possibility for white to install other battery. What battery? Queen d5 maybe in some moment, of course, after white reaches full access to d5, eliminating black bishop and knight. With installing that battery, there will be problem to black pawn on f7. Now all white pieces are targeting d5. Bishop, knight, queen. Such overprotection must give amazing results. What can black do? h6. That is solid move needed because, for instance, if black plays this, let me show you. All pieces controlling key squares are good pieces. Let's mark them blue. And black has some blue pieces as well. Queen may control it. Black bishop e7 is bad because it doesn't control weak square. White bishop e3 is good because it attacks black pawns, but the pawns are pretty safe. So white would have good possibility of bishop g5 to eliminate the bishop to the knight, to exchange bishop for the knight, which controls d5 square. If now h6 taking, and for instance, even this, now or later, doesn't matter. Maybe white can play b3 just to prevent c4 and then to play bishop d5. After white plays bishop d5, that bishop will be exchanged. White will stay with dominant knight against poor bishop and with desperately weak d5 square and with square c4, weakness on a6, and so many weak squares in black camp. c6, d6, d7, who knows? Black advanced pawns c5 and d5, and as you already know, any advance will more or less make some squares weaken. What about g4, g5? Okay, I think question was about that position. Probably after h6. Even after h6, I would not suggest g4. First, why to give black chance to sacrifice and to complicate? In that position, in that moment, black is strategically lost. So any complicating will be can be only good for black, can go only to black favor. What I want to say, remember that implementing do not rush principle. Learn that from games of Akiba Rubinstein, Aaron Imcovich, Petrosyan, Karpov, and of course, as I like also to suggest, Ulf Andersson. These players were real masters of implementing don't rush principle. About don't rush principle, it is principle you can implement in positions your opponent is without any real active plan. What can black do here? Nothing. Knight must stay there to control. d5, bishop is out of prospects. That pieces bishop b7 and queen c8 are stuck defending a6 pawn. So black cannot even play queen d7. There will be bishop a6, extra pawn for white. So when your position is out of any reasonable plan, a reasonable active plan, when your opponent is forced to sit and wait, you usually have one plan based on advancing your pawns, trying to crush his position this way. That is plan our customer suggested, g4, of course, with idea to attack on the king side. Other plan can be to use pieces to maneuver patiently. If you go for pawn play, that will for sure drastically change character of the game, where you will not be able to go back for pawn play, for piece play, sorry. And if you choose playing first with your piece, you can try patiently, maneuver here and there, waiting, then try to create some weakness, try to conquer some weakness, try on queen side, try on king side. You can make some circles and you can once again achieve the same position. By this approach, you will give right opponent to make mistake. Maybe you will make him asleep, who knows, maybe he won't be able to react finally properly when you start advancing your pawns. Also, very often, opponents just, if you play patiently, just start feeling uncomfortable and go for some drastic measure, which will help you to realize. So simply, first go for piece play. If that fails, if you achieve nothing, you can once again go back and try with pawn play. By this approach, you will have 2 bullets in your hands. You will have 2 chances to crush your opponents. If you try first with pawns, pawn structure, character of the game would be for sure drastically changed, and probably you won't be able to go back to start with pawn play. I hope I explained everything, and I hope that is clear now. So opponent is paralyzed. Don't go for pawn play in such situation. h6 was played and white played king f1. Exactly, I just was speaking about this. Patient move. What is the point of king f1? Who knows? Maybe back will create weakness with a5, king e2, and offer exchanging queens. It is normally solid to exchange bad queen for good. But after you exchange, of course, now you see your pieces invade and your king will be closer and able to invade. So with king f1, you play patiently. You reduce, very important fact is you reduce chance to make mistake. If you advance pawns, who knows, maybe you will blunder something. So by playing patiently, you reduce risk to make any mistake. Bishop f8 was played here and king e1. Bishop e7, bishop f2. Once again, multi-purpose move. First idea is bishop h4 to exchange bishop for knight. Another idea is bishop g3 to attack e5. And what happened? King f8, bishop g3 happened, and now finally black cannot move the queen to defend because that pawn falls, and black pieces must go to defense. As you could see, patient play just brought white many benefits. Now white can install piece on d5. Bishop d5 is good, but knight d5 is even better. White keeps bishop on c4 on dominating spot. Knight d5, okay. Taking will lead to disaster. How to defend f7? After that, pawn falls, game over. Black must wait. Bishop there, and now bishop f2. For some reason, white moved his bishop back with idea maybe in some moment to strike a5 or maybe b4 to target that pawns b6 and c5. Once again, patient play performed by Efim Geller. Bishop d8, and now white just goes for new dance. White got access to d5. Now it removes the knight, opening doors for the queen. So maybe queen will go there. Black chose bishop c7, and now knight f5. All that is very normal. d5 is strongly under white's control. Knight f5, there is idea to jump maybe there. Okay. Bishop b8 and bishop h4. Compare that position, let's say, to position to that position, you will see that white managed to achieve a lot. So now I go back to our position, bishop h4, queen c6, bishop d5, queen c8. And now I suggest you once again to find a way why can crush opponent defense. There is nothing wrong with taking opponent bishop and dominating on light squares, but there is possibility to lead to transfer game, to switch to wild attack, combinatory attack, which starts with move bishop takes f7. If you perfectly lead game in some strategical manner, in some moment there will be some tactics offered to you, and do not force yourself, do not be preoccupied to find some tactics for any price. No, in some good moment tactics will occur, even if you don't seek for it. Bishop f7, yeah. What happens if black takes? Check, of course not to b3 because black eliminates the check. This. Now if king g6, queen falls, game over. If king e8, then just check, check, and mate. If king f8, then this check and this, or even stronger, queen e6 with mate in next move. Let's go on. Queen c4, king g6, yeah, that would lead to imminent win. After bishop f7, black play g5. What is that? Two bishops are under attack. Does that mean white blunder something? No. Queen c4 this time, defending the bishop. If he takes, queen e6, threatening mate in 1. After that, there is bishop h5, threatening another mate, and black cannot avoid that mate, because after queen f6 there is mate on e8. Not difficult to calculate at all. After queen c4, black played knight to f6, and after knight to f6, white just calmly retreat the bishop. Pawn is taken, black position is in ruins, and white wins by force. Queen c6, now bishop g6, threatening the mate. Black tries to organize something, queen d7. Now you see importance of king on e1. With king on g1, black will have the check. So patient play by white allowed him to control infiltrational squares d1 and d2. And now there are no checks, there is no infiltration of black queen, so white can just continue with his devastating attack. He can play a5. Finally, white played on the queen side, switched on the king side, and now finally white returns to the queen side, where final blow happens. What I want to say, controlling key squares and over controlling key squares, having definite control over key squares, will allow you to play on both wings. Somehow that is a valid principle, and don't try for me to explain. Simply that is fact. You will observe that so many times in your future career. By the way, you can just pick a random game. One player dominates on key squares, and you will see that he will have good prospects on both wings. a5, eliminating defender of pawn c5. Of course, bishop a7 was played. There is nothing better. ba will be met with bishop c5. If bishop a7, ab taking, white takes, black takes, and after king g8, queen e5, there is mate in few moves. Very soon black will be mated, and there is nothing he can do. Even if there is no mate, there are 3 extra pawns for white, and in that moment black decided to resign. What a beautiful game and beautiful performance by Efim Geller. If you want properly to play Sicilian as white, Efim Geller is perfect example, perfect choice. Analyze his games, especially if you want to learn how to play against Boloslavsky system with white pieces. Some other players played perfectly against Boloslavsky, of course. I can mention Karpov, of course, but Efim Gallery is first, who just did serious strikes on that black, on that variation, on that Boleslavsky variation in Sicilian defense. Once again, I want briefly to show you the game. Queen d2. Well, both sides just in initial part of the game start taking care about d5 spot. Of course, black would be happy if he managed to provide d5. White will try to prevent it, especially after f3 is played, because after f3, potentially weakening move, d5 will get additional strength, but still black is unable to do this. Knight c5 happened as terrible mistake, and of course knight c5, black got rid of backward pawn. There is no weakness on d6, but still weakness on d5 remains, and there is another key square. Not only d5, this time also c4 is key square. What is the point? Let's do a few more moves. And here I want to stop once again. Key square was d5. That is key square here now, of course. But even dead squares, c3, c4, d3 are key squares as well. Why? Because from dead squares, you can get access to originally key square on d5. So over control key square, that is always good strategy. And don't forget, all pieces controlling key squares are good pieces. What I want to say, this time white can try, of course, to exchange his bishop e3 for knight f6 and then to invade via d5. That would be definitely a good plan, but white performs something else. King e1, patient play, and finally bishop f2 with transferring bishop to g3 or h4. He decided to play to g3. Matter of style, black is already strategically lost. And after that, white just invaded. After a few more preparational moves, white finally set knight on best spot. Just take a look how white knight danced. Even f5 is key square, not as d5, but still very important. Bishop h4, queen c6, and white just kicks black queen back and targets strikes with bishop f7. After that, more or less, white punishment was clear and brutal. Everything is clear. White just, without any problem, realized. Once again, I want to pay attention on white king prophylactically placed on e1. Reason number one, king is closer to the center in case of exchanging the queens. Reason number two, controlling infiltrational squares on d5. And reason number three, patient play. Don't go for g4 as asked by one of our clients. Just go first for piece play. Of course, it is better to have two bullets than one bullet. I would always vote for piece play in positions when your opponent doesn't have any real active and promising plan. If piece play, patiently maneuvering, fails to bring something, okay, then you can switch using your pawns and you can organize some pawn attacks. If you immediately go for pawn attacks, definitely situation on the board will be changed. I'm talking about pawn structure, and perhaps, or let's say probably, you won't be able to use to go back to implement your piece plan. Okay, let's watch what happened till end of that game. And in that moment, black resigned. My dear chess friends, I hope you enjoyed today's workshop. I hope you could learn something, and I really hope you learned a lot. Stay with us, follow us, and don't forget, book trial lesson, 20-minute lesson, it's free. Pick your coach and organize some trial session when your coach will be able to find your weaknesses and to present methods of your very important for your future improvement, or you can book just 1 extra hour. You can book 1 hour lesson with any of our coaches, and you will have 1 extra hour for free. That is the offer valid during that webinar. Hurry up, register, and book your either trial or a real 1 hour session. I want to finish that session with that information, and I want once again to thank you watching us, following us, and actually you help us to become better. You know, we are here just for you. Let's make chess more popular, and let's help you to improve.
Thank
My
you.
dear chess fans, that would be
Thank
all.
you, Boroljub. Thank you for this great lesson for us. Let me just say a few words. So first of all, guys, let me demonstrate how you may book a class with international master Boroljub Zlatanovic. So please, wait a sec, look at the screen. No, for some reason it doesn't work. Okay. Let me stop it. Okay, anyway, so I couldn't do it right away. I'll do it a little bit later. I just want you to know about our future plans. So next week I'm going to conduct a Blitz event. I'm going to play Blitz with everyone. Everyone who wants, and after that we are going to conduct a tournament that will be a Swiss tournament which consists of 7 rounds. All the games will be played on chess.com and in one day immediately. So I think we can spend about 1 or 2 hours playing these games, and we also offer money prizes, of course. Together with free sessions with our coaches, we offer money prizes. So if you're interested, you should definitely join our tournament. Okay, so thank you for your attention and hope to see you next weekend. I believe the next event will be next Sunday. The links to book the class with International Master Boroljub Zlatanovic are here already in chat. I'll copy them once again.